Hi everyone, and welcome to Touching into Presence. Today we're speaking with Jade Wood. Jade is a somatic movement educator, biodynamic craniosacral therapist, and a Feldenkrais practitioner in her final year of training. She's also the pedagogical director of a 100-hour Somatic Yin Training, a unique blend of somatic self-awareness and yin yoga. Jade is an all-around appreciator of the art of movement and stillness, and loves a good cuppa and a book of poetry. Originally from England, she now teaches globally and has been grateful to count amongst her many teachers Paul Grilly, Angela Farmer, and Franklin Sills. It was really lovely to have Jade on, and we're sure you'll all love what she has to share. That all said, let's begin the show. Hey Jade.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hi, nice to meet you, Nikki.
Nice to meet you too. Looking forward to our chat.
This is really exciting as well because this is our first time coing together with someone. So it's going to be fun figuring out like, yeah.
Hi, Jade. So it's nice to meet you. And I was reading a little bit about your background, and I'm curious how you began your bodywork journey as a acro yoga or a theater creative movement, something like that. Can you elaborate on your start of the bodywork?
Hi, Nikki. It's lovely to meet you. And I will say, shameless little bit of sucking up at the beginning. I really enjoyed listening to your interview the other day with Andrew. It was lovely. I was like, gyrotonics and bodywork. This sounds amazing. So I'm very happy to be talking with you as well as my dear friend Andrew. So yeah, you kind of pinned it. It is a bit of an amalgamation of theater, circus, yoga. Funnily, the acro yoga thing arrived really late. I was so late to that party. I mean, I'm British, right? So it was an American phenomenon happening in the early 2000s. And, Britain's always behind on all this cool stuff. So I got a taste of it when I was at circus school, which would have been somewhere around 2007. Which time, I'd sort of pursued a slightly off-piste interest in circus, having done a theatre degree. So I kind of came from theatre first, then got into more performative arts, physical theatre. Then yoga was to supplement like crazy stress during my circus training. Could say straining very easily, my circus training. And then I'd also been a massage practitioner from before, and then acro yoga kind of turned up, and I was like, wow, it's all my favorite things. This is great.
Yeah, and so then you brought that. So then you started from kind of this theatrical, maybe bigger movement, and then you found your way in. You're a biodynamic craniosacral practitioner, correct?
Yeah. So it went from a lot of performing to a lot of listening. So
yes, I think that journey is really fascinating. When I was listening to your bio, I kept on having this sense of a yin-yang relationship of the theater acro, which is, I've only experienced acro a little bit, but it requires precision and kind of finding alignment, or else you'll miss your partner as they're spinning around on your legs. And then with the biodynamic cranial work, also this flow sense state, but having to maybe be a little less attached to precision and kind of following the flow of your client.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Yes, I think that I would like to hear your journey of like how you hold those, like you came from this one place and now into this like more tracking flow, less big movements.
Yeah. Okay. So, very honestly, the circus work that I did was really gross and basic and unrefined would probably be a great way to describe it. I went to a very basic circus, not even academy, training center, and there was not much body awareness that was taught there. What's cool is that Andrew and I have actually spoken on numerous occasions how that partner work, especially acrobalance, really helps to develop your sensory perceptive abilities. You know, it's an extension of your fascial connectivity. Like straight through, you feel the balance point of someone's back or their feet on the floor as you stand or handstand or whatever it is you're doing with them in balance. And it's an amazing nervous system connective dance. But a lot of the other circus stuff that I was doing was so unnuanced. I mean, it was really like, get up there and do that trick. And it doesn't matter how you do it. And in a funny way, that's kind of how I ended up going on this journey of, for want of a better word, healing, is because I had a very early burnout. 21, 22 years old, I'd pushed myself physically to the limits of what I could take, and in an unnuanced way. And yeah, I had a full-on crash and burn. And I had to get out, and you know, I had one of those silver lining circumstances where a relationship ended, and I took an opportunity and I took a flight to Bali. My father had been living there before, so I actually knew Bali kind of well, and I just went to take some time out, and ended up on a yoga training, and ended up never really going back to the UK. Just went, okay, bye life in the UK. This is too much for me. Because I realized how badly I had been abusing my body and my nervous system. And I'd been working like 3 different jobs. I'd been doing circus work. I'd been living in Bristol, so I'd also been partying a fair bit. And I needed a break. And so it was a really harsh reality call to make. And I mean, the yoga training I did kicked my ass. Kicked my emotional ass more than the physical one. But I was so weirdly developed in strange ways from just making myself do these crazy tricks that also the roundedness of yoga asana was just like, this is tough. This is tough to actually be sensitive, because actually I've been numbing myself to do all these tricks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Mother Bali cradled you.
Yeah. So I went on this huge journey of, I got to look after myself. This is not, I couldn't continue treating myself that way. Nice to have experienced that quite early in life. Well, lucky in a way.
Yeah, it's sort of, I find that a lot of people we end up speaking to that get into the work and stay with it, because in the US people get into massage, and I think there's like a 1.5 or 2 year like period, and then they usually get out of it. There's like been statistics shown on that, but people who I think go deeper, whether it's into cranial, whether it's into Feldenkrais or Rolfing, practices that are a little bit more, I don't want to say a little more awareness based, because I think massage therapists may get offended by that, but things that really have you listening inwards as much as listening with the other people. A lot of them get into it from burning out or from various different extremes. And I know that from my experience in the Rolfing Institute, Nikki, you may have different, but like a lot of people that come into it, they're all coming because a lot are coming because they burnt out. They had something, they had all these physical issues, and they were helped through that. And they said, wow, this is great. I want to help other people now, because I couldn't find, I saw the chiro, I saw the physio, I saw the acupuncturist. I couldn't get help. And I found these practices, they helped me. I now want to also share that with the world. I don't know, Nikki, do you feel that's the same in your experience somewhat through the Institute?
Absolutely. I think that with Rolfing, there's the practitioner who is there to nudge the person, the nervous system, the story, however we want to identify it. But ultimately, though, what we're calling on is for the client to tap in and take authority of their health and their body, and that we're there just to guide them. And I think from people who come into the training as a massage therapist, just kind of talking to the burnout aspect of it, for someone who's trained in both. I ended up getting my massage license afterwards to practice legally in New York. The training as a massage therapist is, and I love getting massage, so it's not knocking that modality whatsoever, but that's more of a, like, you go in to check out. You really go in to have that opportunity to relax and to be touched. And there's less of a demand to have to be embodied per se in terms of dialogue and checking out where you are in space. So I think with people who choose to come and do the Rolf training or any kind of structural integrative training or somatic training, is that they're now craving that desire to have that relationship with the client and calling on them more to be involved in their body experience. So I think that's kind of the attraction to coming into the training.
Yeah, I think something you said kind of made me go back to what you were saying before about the theater and the acro. And for you, Jade, and correct me, like, I think of theater, I think of acro as very much like spotlight, a bit of like, look at me and I'm performing and that sort of thing. And where you are now, which is almost in some ways for me the exact opposite. Like your somatic yin, your Feldenkrais and your cranial, which are all, and how I view it is like, let's not look at me, let's look inwards, let's go slower, let's not make this a show, but let's actually inquire more. I don't know if you have more to share, or I think you'll word it a lot better. How does that resonate with you?
It's lovely, especially this word inquire, I definitely think, and especially to come back to what you were saying as well, Nikki, these things that we do are so much about the art of inquiry. If I want to, work with my empowered, curious, and my own self-agency, I'm going to go to a somatic therapist. But if I want to have a sort of slightly checked out experience, I might go and get a massage. So I don't go to get an oil massage if I want to do the work. I'll go to my somatic movement therapist. And I think this whole thing about inquiry-based learning, about stimulating the interest for ourselves and for people, again, in our unique ability to sense, all these different ways in which us as individuals experience the world from the inside out, and then how it sort of circulates back around and then, re-influences us is an incredible area of work to be in. It's rich, it's surprising, it's always rewarding. And I think especially in times like this, again, kind of coming from burnout places, or especially when people kind of, and I'll speak from my own experience, feel a bit lost within society, really not knowing what it's like, what my place is like in society as a highly sensitive person, then this space for self-inquiry, for exploration, for self-development and reintegration of all these things that we feel is incredibly necessary. And I think that goes kind of across the board, not just for highly sensitive people, but for all people.
I like that. Can you talk more about, so for being maybe a highly sensitive person in society, how does the somatic inquiry, what do you learn about yourself that then helps maybe find your place in society? It kind of bridges that inquiry into confidence, into owning your space in the big wild world of other people?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's a big old question. And I love that you helped preclude it by saying, finding your space. I think that's a huge one. Being sensitive, I think, and do you guys, what's the word, associate with being HSP or sensitive? Not, just going, oh, I'm really special, but, on that spectrum of, wow, I'm a super sensitive kind of circuited person.
I personally, I don't have that, but I do have someone very close to me who does associate to being very sensitive. So I'm aware of that.
I don't like names, so I'm both. I'm extremely highly sensitive and also the opposite. I find myself having trouble ever plotting myself anywhere on a map. So yes and no.
Sure. I think, it's hard just, donning that badge and being like, I'm an empath, I'm highly sensitive. Well, it can also be limiting. What I was going to say was, in reference to that, I think from my experience, I spent a lot of time apologizing for who I was, for being so sensitive. And these somatic practices of getting in touch and acknowledging my felt sense of awareness, acknowledging the emotions and the tones of sensation that were either dormant or latent within me, allow me to take up space. I had become habituated to being small. And this is what's kind of funny about the performing thing, was because performance allowed me to have big emotions. You have to perform big, especially in circus. So maybe there was a creative outlet there for all of these big feelings. But in the regular world, it's not quite so acceptable. So definitely these practices have really helped me to get in touch with them, to take up the space that I need, but also process them in a way that's useful, that it's not kind of acting out, that's healthy, well-grounded. And most of it's just a huge permission piece. I think the biggest part of my work with myself or with other people is permission to feel, okay, that's there. Yeah. Feel that. And not even getting so caught up in the story of what it means or how it got there, or will we get rid of it? It's mostly like, okay, here we are with this, and how is it to be with this?
That's been a big one for me is letting go of the story of even like, it's great. My linear thought will be like, okay, well, let's find the story and how that got there. So we can, if you find the root, you can trim it, but then also recognizing the story doesn't always matter. And sometimes just even recognizing that something is there, whatever it's there, actually allows it to stay or go. And gives it the permission instead of keeping you locked in that cycle of this is a story. Okay, I got to go, and that's been a big thing in my own world.
Wonderful. I think this whole thing of stories, origins, ways we make sense of things, our narrative. You can call it many different things, but to step back from having to know, first of all, because sometimes you can't know. Sometimes we literally can't know like where this feeling came from. And to be all right with that is also huge, to not know why. And there's a huge amount of potency in the unknown as well, if we can be with it comfortably and safely. And I think that's also another thing that a lot of us are grappling with right now, is the unknown is sort of all around us and we're cloaked in it. And I heard someone say really beautifully the other day that some of our struggles is us coming out of the myth of knowing what it was that was coming next, the myth of certainty.
Yes, I would agree with that, and that is really beautifully said. And I think with this, and we're in an interesting time right now because of the pandemic creating so many unknowns. We're having, whether we like it or not, having to feel what it's like to not go to work, feel what it's like or your work life has changed, feel what it's like to be with your family all the time if you're with family, feel what it's like not having family if you're not. I mean, there's so many feelings that this pandemic is forcing upon us. And I think, what you might have picked up on my previous podcast is that how movement's so key right now to still stay embodied, still not become unwound with our structure, that there is this way of dancing and feeling in, especially in a very unregulated world that we're in right now. And I think it teaches our nervous system that, we're quite tolerant of all things, not just the bliss and beauty and certainty, that we also can thrive in a very scary time with a virus out there that's new and we don't know what's going on with it. And it's, the mortality rate. I mean, that piece with the New York, was it the New York Times? Andrew, do you know this?
I don't read the news. I'm the wrong person to ask for that stuff.
I think it came out of the New York Times. The publication, when newspaper publication has like a whole page of pretty much everybody who has died, and with little 4 words about the individual, and it's very powerful image to see. And just at a moment's glance of the page, you get to learn a little bit about the person who once was here, but then has now passed because of the virus. So I apologize not owning that credit, but if you're paying attention to anything on the social media, regular media, overhearing people, this is like on constant reel of what the world is experiencing, and everybody's going to have that emotional impact around it. So, Jade, I would like to hear more from your experience with your work. How have you seen with maybe your clients, and maybe even speaking from yourself, from coming from a highly sensitive person, frequently being able to frequent experiences with your emotion, how has that shifted in your nervous system?
I don't know if I have a full answer for that yet, if I'm really honest. It's one that's still being crafted. I think I still feel very much in the midst of it and figuring out how to meet it. This is a new kind of visitor. What I have been reminded of, and something nice that you mentioned, was about what we can take and about resiliency. And I think this piece about resiliency and fragility together is really beautiful, that there is this dichotomy of our system, of our nervous system, somewhere tacking between being rested and receiving, and then being activated and ready to go, and that dance between our rest and our resiliency. And I think that's kind of been the main in the foreground of what I've been noticing in myself, in my practice. And as you asked about clients, so I've just been doing phone sessions and guided awareness sessions of felt sense, and some very, very bbasic movement pieces, but nothing taxing. And it is amazing after 45 minutes how resilient someone's system can be, a little bit of access to the ground. And I love how simple that is, like a little bit of time on the ground and feeling the back of your pelvis and feeling the imprint of a shoulder blade or a turn of the head. I mean, this is not rocket science movement that I'm doing at all. It's so, so delicate and small and gentle. But the impact can be profound of that. Oh, wow, I have a sense of myself. I have a feeling, because, so many people often think of their brain, their thoughts, this thing as being almost separate from themselves. I have a brain and I also have a body. And it can feel like that. People can kind of go around with these little bubble heads going on, or with all of their anxieties or their huge responsibilities being held in this space. And then lying on the floor and feeling the weight of your cranium settle onto the cushion or towel, feeling the density of your brain tissue start to sort of rest into the back of your head. And suddenly people have a head that's connected to their neck, that's connected to their spine, that's connected to their whole self again. And the huge shift that can inspire. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I don't take credit for that. That's the beauty of embodied work, right? If someone's ready to feel, then all the gifts are right there. It's almost insultingly easy. Especially when I get like all worked up and in a funk. I know that the best medicine is to get down on the floor and spend 30 minutes listening to myself, not even making myself breathe a certain way, not doing anything, funky. But wow, when I'm in a funk myself, getting down on the floor is difficult.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this personally, you and me, Jade. I don't remember if I talked about it with you, Nikki, on the episode before, but a few weeks ago when I recorded the first episode and completely didn't record it and realized afterwards, and I was in such a funk, I just went and did some Feldenkrais and I just did some aware movements, and I felt that negativity, that anger that was in me, I felt it dissipate and travel through me just by doing some small movements, really dropping inwards and allowing whatever was there to, like we said before, the story didn't really matter. The thing came up, it was there, and if it wanted to say it could, and it was sort of like, you don't need to be here anymore. You can go. But it was not serious physical asana, doing headstand for an hour. It was moving and moving how my body wanted to move.
Well, I think that speaks to two things. That why maybe it's so powerful is that we often don't spend the time to honor our own personal authority, that our body has the ability to really guide us, that often we're looking for help. We're looking for someone else to tell us what to do. And I think that's what's really awesome about Rolfing, is that and having a coach is really great. I think, there's great service in a coach. And then there's also great service of, being your own coach and setting your mind straight and doing it yourself. And I think the why these subtle movements can be so powerful is that you really are honoring your own internal dialogue, and that dictates how you would move. And, we're speaking about somatic movement that I think we all are kind of trained in one way or another. But for listeners who may not know what somatic is, it's just taking the time to lie down, be with your thoughts, and move in a way that your body craves, and not being held to a prescription of this is the right way to move. And I personally love that dance because I love all types of movement. I mean, before coming, I'm in my yoga studio. You can, I have my yoga wall, have my, somatic fun tools. But prior to that, I was in my garage lifting dumbbells and doing more prescribed movements that also have great joy and fundamental purposes. So, yeah, I think it's, but I really like Jade, how you said it's insultingly easy, because it kind of is.
Well, but it is and it isn't. It's like you have to, I think of it, you have to peel all the layers of what you think, and so everything thinks it should be more. We had a great in my phase 3 training, we had a great lesson. I think there was actually in the other people's phase 2, we had a guy named Liam, and he could overthink things, much like myself. And his teacher said, Liam, you have to remember, Liam stands for less is always more. And so I think of him a lot, and it's like less is always more. It is. It's we as humans, I think, want to overcomplicate things. We want to do more. We want to because there is this sense of.
That's how our system of reward works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look at our governments. I don't want to go too political, but like, more is good. This is, whoever has there was like that bumper sticker. Whoever has the most toys wins, right? But then, yeah, I won't go into sort of that all thing and the choice. But yeah, I think the complicated thing is the irony is learning how to do less, therefore to do more. That's something. Yeah, that's something I'm in every day. Is how do I do less?
And learning how to do less, I think, sometimes also includes how to learn what it is we learned, the adaptations that we made, whether they're societal, cultural, whether we made adaptations because of an injury. And largely, most of these are cultivated through self-protection. Maybe culture less so. It's more subliminal in a wider sense. But I think a large part of the somatic journey is, as you say, unlearning, is gently, really permissively, gently, kindly releasing the barriers that we've accidentally constructed. Ways in which we get in our own way, habits of doing things, of clenching, of squeezing, of straining, of trying too hard. And I think, to speak to the capitalist, to speak to the capitalist idiot, is that we have been told about the fruits of hard work. Nothing's worth doing if it wasn't difficult. And that's such a disabling paradigm to live by. And I think it's systemic within our society. If we were allowed to prioritize pleasure rather than pain, no pain, no gain, what a different way we would inhabit our bodies, let alone our entire society. And so, yeah, it's this very slow on a very small way, doing that work of peeling back layers of how we might have been getting in our way, how we might have been accidentally rewarding ourselves for strain, and beginning. And I'll go back to what you were saying, Nikki, about what somatic movement really is, but beginning to receive sensations through our movement, so that we don't become just an agent of doing things. Our body is not just a platform of stuff to be done, but it's a whole gift box of things to be received.
Gift box. I like it.
I just like sharing. I mean, Jade and I have known each other for over 7 years. We met in a craniosacral training a long time ago, and I'm just happy to share her with this greater community, because these are what our conversations are like a lot. Sometimes over dim sum and sometimes over the WhatsApp. So I'm just happy to share, because I think she has so much to offer in her gift box and her toolbox of knowledge.
Oh, thank you. Do you?
So, I mean, we're at around that time range where we like to keep things, but I also like things to flow. If there is more either of you feel you want to say or ask or do, now's the time. We also can have another one in the future as well. There's no reason you can only talk once on the show and then done.
That's your platform.
Yeah. Speak and be gone.
You better make sure you said it all.
Yeah. I'd be horrible at that. I'm always like the next day, like, oh, that's what I wanted to say. Like when I work with clients, a lot of times the next day I'll send an email and it's sort of like, so this is an exercise, or this is that. This is because I realize I don't. In the end of that, like my processing is very. I'm a slow learner. It takes that time to go through. Luckily, I have somatic movements to help with that.
to decelerate, to come back to your natural pace, which is so awesome, especially that you recognize it. I think it's such a liberating thing to be able to say proudly, I'm a slow learner. I think that's wonderful. You know,
my phase 3 for Rolfing really helped with that. I've said it before. I just wasn't. Afterwards, I looked at how I was as a student through feedback in lots of ways, and that really helped me a lot of ways to keep on the path where I am.
Well, I think you're also kind of speaking to kind of the hallmark of Rolfing is the work doesn't stop working once the session's over with.
Oh, tell me more about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about embodiment and, you know, what we learn, and it isn't the point to gain this relationship, to dive into the sensation, to dance in your gift box, and then see how that moves us through life. And it's not a one and done, wham bam, thank you ma'am type of thing. That's embodiment has phases, and we evolve. I mean, we came from, depending on your thoughts, but you know, the demands of life turned us from little one-cell organisms into these people walking on their legs and holding this radium on. So we're relating to what our needs are, and when we have that relationship, then we're constantly evolving and relating to the world in new ways, or in old ways that have served us. So, you know, embodiment isn't always abandoning what we are. It's kind of taking what, you know, this is a thing from the Rolf Institute that I learned, is that we take what has served us and we get rid of what's limited us. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that's what we can, everybody can do in their lives. And it doesn't.
Absolutely. And those things that maybe weren't so great for us were the best teachers. You know, I really like this way of working, that we can pick up all of these different experiences along the path. And that with the right approach, and what I mean by the right approach is not necessarily like, you know, a systematic approach of, you know, do this, but with a constructive approach to our own evolving selfhood, that we pick up all of these different experiences of life, and we can kind of tether them into our coats and see how they can continue to influence the journey. And this is something actually that I find myself contemplating quite a lot at the moment, especially because of how I'm adapting, how I'm working, and how I'm having conversations with colleagues at the moment about recognizing different fields of awareness and different fields of interconnection, and how experiences shape us. With this resiliency piece, I'm kind of trying to link in too many things at once. I can feel it. I'm just like, I know about resiliency thing. And then we've got these like limiting experiences that happen along the way. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to reduce it down. What I'm trying to say is, in a really busy way, is that in some way, health is always present and learning is always available to us. And it's about how we metabolize those experiences for our own benefit. And sometimes, you know, how long that takes, that can be huge cycles. So like you were saying, you can come out of a treatment and the full impact of that treatment can come full circle maybe 2 years later. Have either of you ever experienced this?
Oh, yeah.
You suddenly get a lesson from a treatment you received from someone way back. It's like, whoa, I feel this now. I get what that was telling me. So this is what's super cool, that the timeline that we're living on and that we're experiencing ourselves is kind of continuous, cyclic, and all happening at once, it seems. So maybe that's too big a too big a thing to tackle in the rest of this chat. But it does speak to the quantum field, that everything that has ever happened to us is happening to us, and how we're choosing to metabolize and express that experience is very much up to us. And it's cool stuff.
Well said. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a pretty good place to. It's hard to go anywhere up from there.
Thank you, Jade, for sharing your journey.
Yeah. And,
thank you both so much. Thanks for asking such incredibly interesting questions. I mean, I could sit here for hours and talk with you both. It's really a pleasure to sit in a triad of nerds.
Well, I think that's part of where this sort of podcast idea came from, was like, again, having conversations and with people in the field and sharing ideas and thoughts. And like, I know when Nikki and I first started talking, it was very similar. It was just sort of like talking and it was like, oh my God, it's been an hour. We have other stuff we got to do, and so it's nice that we've been able to tune it into something productive and getting more voices and sharing that with other people as well. So, yeah. Super.
Lovely.
All right. Well, everyone
have the rest of your days.
Yeah. We're all in different parts of the world. So have a good sleep. Have a good breakfast. Thanks for tuning in. You can find more information about our delightful guest today, Jade Wood, at jadewoodyoga.com. Your co-hosts today were Nikki Olson and Andrew Rosenstock. We have some exciting guests coming up in the next few weeks, and we're excited to share these conversations with you. If you have topics you'd like to hear about, or people you believe we should speak with, please let us know. Wishing you a safe and beautiful day to come. Thank you.